From the Black Swan Media Studios, deep inside a secret underground bunker, we're speaking to freedom-loving patriots from all around the country and the world. Welcome to the Resistance.
Hey, what is up, everyone? John Crump here, and we have a repeat guest from last week because there was so much to cover. We didn't get through it all, but before we get to that guest, let me bring on my co-host and producer of the show, Mr. Flying Rich.
What's up, Crumpy?
Not much. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. Coming in hot.
Yeah, just there was a guy shot outside the RNC today, but we don't know anything about it yet. So that's all we know. Somebody shot.
Well, I have a little further details on that. Apparently, the guy had a bunch of knives on him. And that's everything I know.
What was he? That guy from that one show? That dude, that guy from the Black Parade wrote. Really good show on Netflix. Never mind. I don't know. And let's go ahead and bring on Richard Vasquez. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, guys. I was at the beach with my granddaughter. We didn't think we'd make it here right at 6, but we did. All right, at 5, I'm sorry.
Nice. Good for you, man.
That's cool. What beach are you at? What beach?
Well, we've been moving for 2 weeks, and I'm so sore. And finally, she's here for a week. We said, we got to get to the ocean, so we took off.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad that you got a nice vacation.
Working.
Yeah, so last week, first, if you don't know who Rich is here, the one down, I guess I'm followed by, I'm surrounded by a bunch of Riches. But Mr. Vasquez here, he is a former ATF employee that ran Fat D, which is the technology branch. We got into a bunch of stuff last week, but we didn't cover everything that we wanted to cover. So we brought him back this week to cover some stuff that he feels that is important to our community and for people to know. And after he told me, like, this is what I think is important, I was like, yeah, that is really important, and we should cover that. So we were bringing him back.
I appreciate you guys having me.
All right.
Always. You're always welcome.
So you wanted to get into a little on something that's been getting a lot of people caught up on.
Yes.
Like, let's just go right into it. So we don't get.
I think a lot of people don't really understand the portions of the Marine Corps, the machine gun definition. And there's so many portions of you, and they say, well, how can they arrest me for this piece of metal? How can, or arrest me for this little thing? You know, how can they charge me with a felony? Well, to go right off the bat, a machine gun is defined as, by the statute, any weapon which will or is designed to or may be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by the single function trigger. Any part, the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively for converting a semi-automatic firearm into a machine gun, and any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if under possession and control of a person. And the definition of the basic machine gun, if I have an AR-15 or an M249, I pull the trigger and I just see that beautiful stream of brass going out. I can understand that. I have a machine gun. And I don't want to get into the triggers yet. So we just got a machine gun. So then I have all the parts, and this pops up a lot. It shows up in pawn shops. It shows up at estates where a guy who says, hey, my grandfather had this, my father had this. It's a receiver of a Thompson, a receiver of believe it or not, MG42. Those pop up quite a bit. I mean, because look how many GIs brought them back. So they take this MG42, this Thompson, whatever it is,
I love to have
and
an
then
MG.
they start popping it around. What's that? Say that again.
I would love to have an MG42. If
You
anyone
and me both.
wants to tell me a replica MG42, I will meet you behind the Walmart. I'm joking, by the way.
So they take these and they start shopping around. Somebody gets scared because he knows guns, and then somebody's knocking at his door. He's in possession of a machine gun because it is designed to accept machine gun components for it to shoot automatically. So now we have anything that can be readily restorable. This is where the government takes advantage of people. What does readily restorable mean? The sailor down in Norfolk who had to cut up machine guns. And that's another gentleman. I talked to him 3 times, had a conference call with his attorneys, and they would refuse to hire me. And the maniac said, I want to hire you. I said, well, I can't talk to your attorneys or talk to you until we have a contract. Didn't even get to money. They wouldn't even give a contract, so, okay. So I get a cut up receiver, and somebody very strategically bandsaw cut it right down the middle, or chop saw cut it right down the middle. And so I have these 2 components. Is that a machine gun? According to the statute, it is.
It has to be
I
three
can tell
angle torch cuts, right? 3 angle torch cuts.
Well, we'll talk about the proper destruction because there's different methods.
Okay.
But so I got this and I got it cut in half, and where they came from, I don't know, but I'm in possession of them. So who's in possession of the machine gun? Now, as I understand, nobody put these back together. When I was with Firearms Technology Branch, if I'm going to show that it's a machine gun can be readily restored, I'd weld it back in about a New York second. I would demonstrate that it can be welded back and shoot it. I had an Uzi cut in half, and I wrapped it up with duct tape and shot a 30-round magazine.
Whoa.
Yes, videotape. I was deposed in the M14 case because we said it could be readily restored. In 45 minutes, I assembled barrel parts, everything, and welded it back together and shot it automatically. So if you demonstrate that it's readily restorable, then hey, how can you blame the government? And so that's what we would do. And I understand none of these were welded back together. Now, when you talk about
So you're talking about Tate's case.
Yes. Now we're going to get back.
Okay.
So when you talk about a destroyed receiver, there's nothing in the statute that talks about what is a destroyed machine gun. So you're going to call me a liar when I tell you this. ATF created these destruction procedures to benefit the import community, and that is an absolute fact.
Yeah, that is true.
So Ed Owen, once again, you heard me mention Ed Owen the other day. He said, "Okay, we're going to come up with a way. We're going to follow DOD's guidelines. DOD has 1/2-inch cutting torch." And Ed Owen said, well, nobody has a 1/2-inch cutting torch, so we're going to go with a 1/4-inch cutting torch. So basically the tip, when you cut with an oxyacetylene, removes 1/4 inch of material.
Okay.
So that was the initial destruction procedure. If you cut it in this manner, it's not a firearm. Okay, so everybody didn't understand. God, I want to save that trunnion. I want to save this trigger pack. If I cut it across here, the diagonal line shows me cutting the front trunnion or the rear trunnion. So ATF acquiesced again. No, we're only talking about the receiver. You take the trunnion out, you take this out, and you cut that receiver with a torch, it's destroyed. So then in 2001, I believe, there were 4 rulings came out. We came out with 4 rulings, and it showed a G3, an FAL, in 1919, and I'm trying to say a Sten. It was like four
And Rick, can I ask you to pause for a second here? So what we're talking about is we're not talking about law. We're talking about decisions at the ATF.
Yes,
correct?
Yes, this
Okay.
was ATF could have said a machine gun's a machine gun till you melt it, shred it, whatever.
Okay.
But they were trying to help out the import community. So these rulings came out and memorialized it. If you cut it in this manner, you don't have to ask for authority. And it says it only applies to the receiver. Well, the import community came back again. Well, and this is a very legitimate request. These guns, we're buying them. They're soaked in cosmoline. We got to clean them. How about if we cut them with a chop saw, but we cut them so dramatically that there's no material left, and we leave that material overseas? So, that what's wrong with that? I got an AK. I cut it right in the front. Boom, there's my trunnion and barrel. I cut it right around the trigger. That section of the receiver's gone. This section of the receiver's gone. There's no receiver left. So there's different classifications, and you can even write a letter into ATF and says, well, I really don't like all these other processes. Will you look at this process? I'm going to remove this much material. So there's not a statute. There's not a regulation. There's nothing. What it hangs on.
So I could write a letter to the ATF and say, all of these are a problem. I got a laser. I'm going to slice it like this with a laser. But instead of just a pencil thin line, I'm going to do two parallel lines, and I'm going to throw the middle piece away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can say, with my laser, I can get so precise around this receiver, and I'm using AK because that trunnion is so hard to take out. Who wants to drill those pins out? I can so strategically go around the trigger. The rear trunnion, I can go around it. You have 3/4 of the receiver I'm leaving over here in Serbia. Mm-hmm. So there's options on destruction.
Okay.
But what it comes down to is this thing that I destroyed, can it be readily restorable? So I cut it in 3 diagonal pieces. Is there enough material left there that I can show the courts that it can be restored? And how am I going to restore it? I'm just going to tack weld it. All I would do is the minimum. I wasn't going to do a full fusion weld, tack. You know how simple these were? I'd put the magazine for my guide, clamp it together, tack, 4 tacks, load the magazine, it shoot. Because these people don't realize, well, most people don't think about it. All your chamber pressure is in the chamber.
Right, if you have a locking bolt.
Yeah, it's just a housing so everything can reciprocate. So you don't need much to hold this together, especially submachine guns, open bolt. Holy crap. I mean, if you could hold it in your hand, you could fire it back and forth. I mean, they're that sloppy. So that's what it comes down to. So this gentleman had all these parts kits he was buying, selling back and forth. And then they went after him. I don't remember how. Oh, that's right. He had them all over Gunbroker, I believe it was. Somebody found him.
Well,
I can tell you exactly how it happened because I wrote about this. A CI asked them to get a part,
a specific receiver,
Gunbroker, from a specific listing on Gunbroker. And when he did, that's when they busted him.
And I, for the life of me, after talking to him, don't understand how the government won that case.
I think his attorneys really screwed up. I mean, they mishandled a bunch of stuff, and they didn't seem like they really understood guns.
They didn't. And whether they hear this or not, I'm going to tell you, the first conversation we had, one of the attorneys, or 3 or 4 attorneys, they get online, and one of the attorneys goes, well, I do this gun case, and I know about guns, and what do we need you? I just said, you don't need me. Basically, you have a nice life. So then we got into discussion, what do I do? How can I help and stuff like this? And we had this conversation 3 times. And I finally just told him, if you're not going to give me a contract, don't call me anymore. Because now you're trying to pump me for information. And, and so I talked to the young man a couple of times, and they decided that they were going to do this case. And I don't know if they use any former ATF consultants or not in this, but GOA sent them to me. I think I would do a lot with Rob Olson out of Virginia. Yeah. And so he said, hey, did they call you yet? I said, yeah, I talked to them a couple of times. They go, well, what are they going to do? I said, well, they're not going to use me. And so that's how it went to pass. So when he was convicted, I mean, I read little bit of the case. They put on a very, very poor defense for him. Very poor defense.
And they did a terrible, terrible job. I mean, reading through it, it was just, I don't understand. But yeah, it is what it is.
So back to the definition of machine gun. So we talked about readily restorable. Now we got a part designed and intended solely and exclusively. That's the drop-in auto sear. This is where these young guys are going to jail. And then the safety sear, the automatic sear, the lightning link. Hey, man, I'm just making them in my garage. I'm just selling them to get a few extra spending dollars. Can you say up to 10-year felony? Just look in the mirror and say that to yourself when you're starting to hit your 3D printer or starting to turn your milling machine in. Just do that. And I didn't say this the other day, but I was approached by Giffords, a Gifford group. I get approached by a lot of people. And I actually had some really good conversations with them. I said, I just don't know how I can help you. I said, you know what my politics are? I said, yes, but we need knowledge. Well, of course they need knowledge. But I didn't say that. And so they asked me for suggestions. And I said, my suggestions would be to do more informationals, exactly what you and I are talking about right now. Get these people to understand that if you're doing this, and you need to start in elementary school, you need to start so that these young guys that are taking guns, making guns, whatever they're doing, and getting on the street, getting in trouble, you need to educate them. And the other thing is, you need to start prosecuting people. You need to create task force in these cities, and you need to start prosecuting. It's just like the Wild West days. When they would do a hanging, that was a deterrent. It would deter other people from robbing.
Yeah, you did that in the town square and everybody saw it.
Yeah, that's never going to fly today. But at least if you're locking people up and you're advertising and you're showing what you're doing.
And my favorite sheriff, Grady Judd in Florida, he does, he shows all the dumb perp stuff. He's like, well, he did this in my county and one of my citizens shot him dead. And if anybody needs gun training, come to me. I'll show you how to do it. And
then the last portion is this is the worst one where you can really get tripped up. Any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if under possession and control of a person. God, I got an AR-15 receiver. I got a complete set of machine gun components. That by itself is not a machine gun because you can't install them. Oh, but I downloaded the video of where to drill my M16 pin. And I bought a little kit that shows how to line it up completely. So now, do I have everything to make a machine gun? Absolutely. So I got the drill bit. Oof. I got the little kit because you can buy a template that you just set it over the receiver. You have to drill. You just measure. You just drill your hole. So then I got the M16 automatic sear, the M16 hammer trigger, and disconnector and selector. So that's any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if under possession and control of a person. And these knuckleheads buy this stuff. They'll have a complete set of AK parts kits and all of the components and everything to make a machine gun, and they're not licensed manufacturers. They just say, well, I need this, I need this. Well, I better get 10 of these, so I got them all in my shop.
So, Rick, can I ask you a couple of questions here because this is kind of interesting. During the sentencing for Matt Hoover's case, Justin Irvin, the co-defendant, they made mention, the prosecution, which I thought was ridiculous. They said, well, he had M16 fire control groups and AR-15s nearby, and they just said, the judge's like, yeah, I'm not hearing any of this. We've been through this, but he didn't have jigs, holes drilled, or anything. So let me recap a little and make sure I understand. I could have an AR-15 and an M16 fire control group. If I don't drill the hole or cut open the pocket or have videos or jigs on how to do it, I'm okay.
But there's one caveat here.
Okay.
That agents have gotten in trouble over this. If you put a complete set of M16 parts in an AR with the heavy bolt and no M16 sear, 99% of the time they will fire automatically on hammer follow through. And here's the reason why. The two selectors have the different grooves, and the two disconnectors are different. The machine gun disconnector is real long. The reason it's long is for the groove on the selector to hold it down so that the hammer reciprocates by itself and is caught by the automatic sear. Well, if there's no automatic sear, it just goes back and forth when you put it on automatic. Right. Now you have a floating firing pin that always dimples anyway. So now you've got the inertia of the bolt and the hammer hitting that floating firing pin, and I'm telling you, 99% of the time.
Now,
but if you
isn't that why AR ammo typically has a harder primer to prevent hammer follow firing?
Well, you brought up something that almost affected a criminal case. And the term, so we got with Sammy, there's really no such thing as harder or softer primers. They don't use those terms. There's standard primers. There's bench rest primers, which are like tinfoil. And then you have military grade primers. And that's why the military grade primers in our common language is harder. And the standard primers are softer than the military grade. And we went through their entire test, because we have to educate ourselves on these things, because that could throw, but we won a case because of this, where they said we were using hard primers and soft primers, and that's the only way the gun would shoot. Well, we proved the gun would shoot regardless. But so that's one thing to remember. You have standard, bench rest, and military grade. And of course, rifle and pistol primers are slightly different. And there's a whole scale on how they do the weight with punching the primer to make sure it'll sustain certain impact.
And can I add one more thing? Because thank you for that information. Matt Hoover said that he believes so the auto key card, he said, was never going to work. It wasn't the right dimensions, wasn't the right material, wasn't the right thickness, wasn't the right flexibility. Apparently, the receiver they had in the video, they had like a 3-second video. They hogged out the receiver. They threw a bunch of metal in there and got hammer follow. So Matt was suspecting they had.
I agree with you 100%. Whoever tried that case should never be able to try another gun case, because things have to be dimensionally correct. Now, it doesn't have to be within a thousandth of an inch, but if it doesn't fit, how can it be an auto sear?
It was 25% larger than this is according to the court documents themselves. It was 25% larger than a auto sear.
I just cannot believe that the defense did not depose the technician and say, make him show, because I've been deposed in this manner before in ATF. Said, you're going to demonstrate that you can do what you said you can do. So he should have been deposed and said, you're going to take this auto key card and you're going to demonstrate how you made it shoot. And it would have showed him as you said, having to cut out the receiver because it didn't fit. You know, it doesn't fit, so you have to cut out
Right.
material to make it fit.
And they never got it to work. They got hammer follow.
On one
And
shot,
Matt
I understand that they
Matt
slammed it
suspected
shut, as I recall.
that it was a light primer, also one of those bench rest primers like you spoke about.
So how it never shot automatically? You couldn't make it shoot automatically, and I understand the judge's instruction were pretty severe. That design to was all it needed. It didn't have to work. Well, this they didn't even demonstrate that this was not designed. What they had, a lightning link is designed. It sounds like the judge was calling it a lightning link the whole time and not separating what he actually was being charged for. It's just like me and you go up and go, hey, you made Rick the Rock. You know, he's rock-headed, he can't do nothing, but they keep charging you for being you. We're two different things.
Right.
Yeah. It was definitely, I think, ridiculous that it didn't fit. It was 125% the size that it should have been. It really didn't flex. They couldn't get it to work the right way. The other people who had it, they've testified that no one had. They couldn't find a single person that was able to get it to work. In fact, everyone that they brought to testify that bought them said, "Yeah, we couldn't get it to work."
And that was another one that GOA Rob recommended me to, and I don't even think they even reached out to me, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I kind of derailed you. You were talking about the Tate case, which is another interesting one. So,
Which one was the Tate?
The sailor.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what happened. What he had was readily restorable, but he didn't go after them to. That's what I don't understand how they even charged him. He was buying stuff that was for sale online. Why didn't they go after the person that was for sale?
They didn't want them
and charge fraud. They just found in reality, which is bad. I'm in possession of the wrong thing. Well, why am I possession on it?
Right.
I had no idea what the hell I was doing. You know.
Well, last time I checked, the guy that they got the receiver from on Gunbroker, when did we check? We checked about a year ago.
I don't recall.
He was still on Gunbroker selling stuff.
Still selling it.
Well, not that particular item, but other items.
I think my granddaughter just walked by.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you on that aspect. Why is he still being allowed to sell? If those are machine guns, why didn't somebody knock at his door or even contacted a gunbroker and say these shouldn't be sold?
Well, one of the interesting things is that the guy, the CI, is the guy that pointed him to the listing.
Yeah. This whole thing, I cannot believe. Whoever that U.S. attorney is, I don't want to sound too negative talking, but that guy is not very professional.
No.
He figured he could get an easy case, and he went after it because it is what it is. Did he possess a machine gun? Yes, he did. But why did he possess that machine gun? How about looking into the background saying, hey, he erroneously bought this because Joe told him to buy it on behalf of Bob. And so now he's in possession of it and doesn't really know what he has.
And Bob was the ATF.
Yes.
That's the really ridiculous part. Like Joe told him to buy it because Bob, the ATF, told Joe to get him to buy it. I mean, I think that's a case of entrapment. But
I agree with you. I mean, as a federal agency, I'd be so embarrassed to even touch this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not cool.
Hey, anybody getting a lot of calls on the shooting? The Trump shooting?
You're talking about the Trump shooting?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been It's a busy weekend for me reporting on that.
I've got a lot of calls. I mean, I worked for Dipmac Security for a couple of years and been a firearms instructor, and people are asking, is that an easy shot? Could you train somebody to shoot that? One question they asked, one reporter, he goes, what grade would you give them at this event? I said, you got to realize there's no almost fail when you're doing something like this. You either succeed or you don't succeed. And they did not succeed. This is a F minus F, lower as you can get. You don't say, well, they almost did a good job or they almost did a bad job. It's completely one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there's going to be a bunch of conspiracy theories out there as well, which we've already seen. I got in a debate with someone. They're like, "Oh, it was a planned shot," and Trump and Trump wanted to be shot in the ear, and that's what I was like, dude. I was like, a 20-year-old kid taking a shot from AR-15 at 150 yards and missing by less than an MOA.
I would trust Jerry Miculek to do that.
It's like,
and he didn't care that 2 other people got killed, and the 20-year-old was willing to throw his life on the line for this.
Yeah, I was just like, that is some ridiculous stuff. It's like, no, it's like, no way.
But there's going to be people that are so against Trump that are going to be spewing that because, I mean, this gave him, he was so presidential, when he stood up and said, fight, 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 instead of running to the car on his hands and knees.
Right.
I mean, so people hate that he came out looking good. I mean, literally a half inch and it would have gone through his eye, and we're talking about a high powered rifle. Then, and here's the other thing. Why didn't he aim at his chest? That's like,
maybe he was.
It could be. Maybe, who knows?
He took
only person knows the guy who's dead.
Too. He had iron sights. So I'm just like, yeah, they wouldn't, give someone an AR-15 from 150 yards out with iron sights and say, missed my head by 3 centimeters.
Oh, they did finally come out and say he didn't have optics?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's public or not, but yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I spoke a little bit too soon. But okay, never mind.
Well, I kind of derailed you guys. We were talking about machine guns. And I wanted to cover those aspects because people have to be more and more cautious. There's so much misinformation on the internet. And I just hate seeing some of these young guys ruin themselves forever.
It seems like they want it to be ambiguous. Like some of the stuff that I've gotten from my sources inside the ATF lays out specific stuff, and if you ask for it, they will. And if you got I got the IOI manual, right, where it lays out this is exactly what the rules are. And then I got a copy of the one from a Freedom of Information Act, which they redacted the exact rules. So I put out the unredacted one because it lists exactly what's the violations. But the one that they gave me that I was able to share with what they wanted me to share with everyone didn't. It had all that redacted. And I don't understand the purpose. Why would you not want people to know the exact rules? Why would you want the people to have to guess and maybe violate the law when you can say this is or violate the rules when you can say this is the exact rules?
Well, one of the big problems is the IOIs, they're called investigators now, not inspectors, on which I still think they're inspectors. Majority of them can't give you the answers that you want. They can tell you a lot about the A&D logbook, but when you get into manufacturing and the NFA, they don't have those answers. there's a handful of people, a couple of them still with ATF, that know the NFA well. I consider myself an expert on the NFA, but when you talk to these young people out there doing inspections, they miss a lot. The Clark case. This guy was counterfeit machine guns. You guys might have read about it, and he got away with it for almost 10 years. He would tell the IOIs that came in and inspected what he had on the wall, and he laughed about it because they didn't know what the guns were. And in the meantime, the gun, what he was telling them was a counterfeit. So he was taking like pre-86 Max Techs, worth like $6,000, and he cut the information off, welded it to a M240, M249, whatever, and then changed the caliber and changed the overall length in 3 transfers. There's 4 guys doing this. So now they're selling an M240 that was made today as a pre-86 M240 for like $50,000.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Because a real M240 is like $350,000. There's only like between 1 and 5 that are fully transferable. So the real people in the NFA community knew that they were fake, but the novices with money didn't know. And so they would inspect these guys, and whatever he put down in his logbook, it was like a model RV1, and he's a manufacturer. I made it in May of 2024, and there's the model RV1 on the wall, and they would just go 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3, like an audit.
Oh.
And so they got away with this for a long time, and they screwed a lot of people out of money, a lot of money. So the knowledge base isn't there. I'm sure, John, you've had to go to this attorney or this person or this senior person before you get the right answer. You're not just going to the general guy to give you the answers that you want.
No, I work with a lot of really good attorneys who know what they're talking about when it comes to guns.
Yeah. Can you list their names?
I'll list a couple of them. I've been to Rob Olson.
Oh, I thought you meant with ATF. Rob, yes.
Oh, my inside sources of ATF?
Yeah, Rob and I work a lot together.
Oh, no. My sources inside the ATF? No. No. I would, I'm not going to say who they are. The ATF knows I have sources in there. Yeah. But they don't know who. They would love to know who.
Now, I write in to FIPB to clarify things. But what I generally do when I write in is I always propose what I think is the correct response. So I don't just say, hey, I want to know why you're calling the sky blue. I'll say, section 478 so-and-so says this, the statute says this ruling says this. So my interpretation of this is whatever I put in here. So I'll generally I'm correct, but sometimes you go back and forth because they think you're wrong in your opinion, and you have to show that you're right. And then but if you're wrong on what I write, and if I'm wrong, at least it makes them come up with a correct response that I can share with people that I do work for. Because I work for a lot of different manufacturers that depend on these answers. Otherwise, they're going to end up in a lot of trouble. So a lot of times I want to get things in writing for ATF, and that's the way I have been doing it, because FIPB, Firearms Industry Program branch, has done an incredible job with responding properly and in a timely manner.
Well, I give the ATF a hard time and everything else like that, but I have to say that the people that are in charge of the NFA division right now have cleaned up a lot of the malfeasance that was going on over there.
Well, I got hired in '99, and the NFA, the branch chief, used to lock himself in his office the entire day, and sometimes he was found crying at his desk. He was threatened with a knife. He was threatened with scissors. And so when we moved to Martinsburg, the cleanup changed. You know, all those people who were working in DC didn't move, and they hired and brought in new people and brought in new supervision. And it's just been a continuous cleanup. I mean, every person who's come in has made a little bit of difference.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, Steve Albro has just been brought back. He's
Yeah.
now the division chief again.
Yeah,
And-
that's who I was actually talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Steve and I worked a lot together when I was with ATF, and he's a DIO out in my area, but now he's back in Martinsburg, and he didn't want to go back. Obviously, he liked where he was at in Charlotte. But that place is like, you know, the star of ATF now.
Yeah,
They have really changed.
how can they get that to everyone else though?
Well, I will tell you this: the licensing center. Have you ever heard anybody complain about the licensing center? They just kind of sit there and do their job just every single day. And when they were in Atlanta, they were a mess. And they moved them to Martinsburg and got some good supervision in there. And that place is just, I mean, autopilot. And the NFA and FIPB. So, and I'll leave it at that. Those three offices are doing phenomenal work.
Yeah, like Will Swift is another guy over there that just took over the industry processing branch chief. And they actually created a couple. They added a new trainer to train, get people up to speed faster, and Rebecca Sinclair over there. It looks like now the NFA division, their hands are being tied by like. They have other ideas that they want to implement that would make stuff a lot faster, but it seems like it's outside forces of the NFA division that are slowing things down.
Well, I know they need a boost in technology. I mean, that's just the whole government.
That's what they've been pushing for internally.
Yes.
And they actually have ideas. So this is what we need. This is what needs to be done. And they've been getting pushback like, oh, well, we got to budget it. You know, we don't have time to work on that. Like, for example, what they want to do is they want to go to bulk approval processing for Form 4s and Form 3s. And they also want to be able to have the ability for people to add multiple serial numbers to Form 4s. So you can buy like 5 suppressors, and they only have to process one Form 4. So that is like auto bundling is what they call it. And that's what they really want to do. But they're at the whims of the people that actually create the forms. So they have a lot of ideas.
That's common sense. You go to a grocery store and buy 10 cases of beer. You don't go one case, pay another case. You're paying taxes on all of them. You know, so why can't the government make it one form also, so that you're going to pay the same amount of tax, whether it's 4 forms or 1 form, you know, so it's too practical.
They also want to auto process like standardized trust, like from like Silencer Shop and Silencer Central. They want to be able to auto process those. Since like the only thing that changes on those is the name of the responsible person. So if they do that, that will get it down. Right now, I just did a story on this. Now, right now, it looks like the bottleneck is the actual FBI.
With Nix?
Yeah.
Well, they will do what they want to do, and only what they want to do.
Right.
As you know.
How do we never hear anything on the ATF doing stuff with tobacco and alcohol?
Well, funny you say that. They don't do that much anymore with it. Because the big thing, they used to collect the taxes. So
Yeah,
they don't collect the taxes now. But there's
Department of
been
Taxation.
numerous cigarette cases because the cartels are using cigarettes for like money. You know,
Yeah.
so when one of my division chiefs, Ray Rowley, was doing a lot of tobacco stuff because of all places, it was originating like in Charlotte, North Carolina, and going up to New York. So they're using the cigarettes just like cash. You
Yeah,
know,
they
they
also,
can get them untaxed. I think it's such a small number compared to the fentanyl, the meth, and the human trafficking that if they catch them, they charge them. But it's just like, okay, you know, we just got 6 million rounds of fentanyl and, 25,000 pounds of cigarette. Okay, let's confiscate the cigarettes and charge the fentanyl.
and Kurt 24 has been a member for 28 months. Getting back to the tobacco part, I know that there's been a lot of big, huge buffs going from the United States into Canada in the last year or two.
You don't see it on the media.
You don't see it in the media, but it actually has been happening.
So who busted it? The Canadians busted them, or the U.S. government?
ATF specifically. I look at a lot of I mean, it's not my wheelhouse, so I don't really report on it too much, but when I look at other stuff, I run across a lot of that. Yeah. So it's but they're catching a lot. Let's see here. I actually have I'm looking up my sources over here to see.
See you later.
So, Rick, did you take a look at any of the videos I sent you?
I did. I looked at everything. Yep.
Oh, okay, good. And so there was a case. So Tim Hoffman has not sold the super safety, but somebody else took it upon themselves to make one and sell it, and they were raided by the ATF.
Yes. And I didn't understand. I just stayed a little bit on the radar of the super safety because, like you said, it. But I didn't see, is Tim Hoffman a licensed manufacturer of machine guns?
No.
And
No.
see, that's a problem. Whether he sold one or not, if he's making them and they classify.
No, he's not.
He's not making them. He just designed it.
So those weren't. He didn't make those.
No,
he designed it.
He designed it. Another company decided to rip off the design and make it.
And they didn't think, of course, to go get it checked out.
Correct.
Yes.
Because it's a safety.
So, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong because he designed it. He wasn't selling it or anything else like that.
That's what I couldn't understand. And so you guys just fill me in on that. I couldn't understand that. And how was he not getting prosecuted?
So, from your experience, that the Hoffman Tactical Super Safety, what would you consider that?
I would not make an assumption until I was actually have it in my hand.
Because what happens is so it's a cross-bolt safety, and that finger rotates that cross-bolt, which then pushes the trigger. It works like a force reset trigger.
And every time it goes back on, the safety goes back on in between each shot.
Yeah, but see, it's just like I looked at the FRT physically. I looked at the Franklin physically. I looked at the Fostech, physically. Because if I look at it, and everybody should look at it, is if I'm going to make an opinion, that's going to jeopardize your future.
Yeah.
If I say it looks good on paper, it should, jump off the roof, you'll fly. Then you bounce on the hard concrete. Well, Rick said I could fly. I said, well, shouldn't I? I say that every day. I tell people something,
Yeah. Exactly. Getting back to the cigarette thing really quick. August of last year, there was a bust of $8 million worth of cigarettes going into Canada. So they do both. It's
That's
just
money.
not. Yeah.
Were cigarettes coming from North Carolina or South Carolina? Did it say?
It didn't say. It was just that I guess there was some multiple states, so it didn't say where the majority of them came from. But it was Virginia was one of the states, North Carolina was one of the states, South Carolina was. It's Virginia down basically. But I think you don't hear about that because it's not as flashy.
That's probably true because it's kind of just a tax violation, is what it is. They're circumventing all the taxes on cigarettes because by the time they get to, you got to pay taxes in Virginia. Then if you go into New York, you pay more taxes. Then if you go into Canada, I can just imagine what the taxes are for tobacco. So when you look at it, does tobacco kill you like meth and fentanyl? No, you got to smoke it a long time. And they're just trading it like money.
Yeah. Yes, but that is basically like one of the things. It's just not it there you don't have like big groups like Moms Demand Action and Bloomberg and people campaigning and taking millions of dollars from anti-gun organizations for anti-tobacco. There are anti-tobacco organizations, but they're not giving the amount of money that these anti-gun organizations are giving. So of course you're not going to hear as much about it.
I think this young man shooting this AR-15 is going to resurrect more emphasis on assault weapons. Yeah, it's just going to give. They're going to be kind of quiet, subdued about it because he did shoot at Trump. He didn't shoot it. If he'd have shot at Biden, holy Toledo, what we have woken up to that. You ever smoked Canadians?
I've never smoked Canadians. I've never smoked a cigarette, so there you go.
Same here, actually. So the hoopla on anti-gun, what we had today probably would have become illegal. It'd have been so bad, but it's only Trump, and so you're not getting that much hoopla about it being an AR-15. Now, if he'd have used a bolt-action rifle and actually hit him, who the hell knows what would have happened?
Right.
So, what manufacturer was the gun, John?
That hasn't been released, but it might start with a D. Also include a P in there, and an M and an S. But I'm not going to come out and say what it.
and no optics, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I heard
the kid should have got an optics sponsor.
I mean, but this is all. I mean, until it comes out, for sure. I'm confident of my sources, but it has not been verified.
Authenticated.
Yeah, authenticated.
Well, since the FBI's got it, I figured. I said this right away to my wife. I said we're not going to know much for a while, because they're going to clamp it down, and unless it benefits them, it won't be released. It's just like we don't know what was actually used in the Vegas shooting. Did he actually use the bump stock? That'd be nice for the public to know. And that's never ever been released. So
yeah, that's something that I find kind of amazing. One of the like motive and all that bit. If the perp is dead, the only immutable thing is the type of weapon and the ammo from the casings that he used and for a projectile that's recovered from the scene. Those things are immutable and immediately available information. So I'm always shocked at the slow walk of that.
Yeah, one of the other things is that they were able to get access to his phone.
I heard they had access to his phone now.
They do.
As of today.
Yeah. They got his Okay. They got his password, so they didn't do any tricky stuff to get it.
He probably had a simple password.
No, I think someone gave it to him.
Could have been. That's a good point.
A family member.
Hey,
Okay.
real quick before I forget, I'm going to be leaving soon. I think you guys are also. Are you guys going to the GOA Goals Conference?
I will be
Yes.
there.
I was just talking to Rob. I'm going to go. Are you guys setting up a booth, a table, or?
We might be broadcasting, working with a couple different places that we might broadcast. Like we broadcast from Shot.
Yeah, we'll probably be at the GOA booth part of the time.
Yeah,
But we might be doing
Rob.
another broadcast like we did at Shot. Rich. Just
Yep.
to let you know.
Okay.
On
Rob
that.
thinks it's too late, but he was going to try to get us a question and answer session. So we didn't talk about it till just recently, and so everything seems to be scheduled. So I said, well, see if you can get us on board with somebody else. So if you guys know somebody that is doing a block and would be interested in, putting me on with their block, I'd definitely be interested. But I'm going to come for a couple of days.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be there. Yeah, Rob's going to be there too.
Yeah. We're just talking. He's working on another project. I'm helping him out with one of those things.
Somebody else is asking about JD Vance. I just want to say that they want to know about JD Vance. JD Vance has a perfect voting record on guns.
Wow.
In my
Okay.
opinion. Yeah, so he's really good on guns. He's like a GOA type politician when it comes to guns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And he's pretty vocal. He's not a sleeping mouse.
No,
But
he's very vocal on pro gun stuff too.
But he's not, a frothing idiot either.
Yeah.
I like the pick. I thought he had collected a bunch of good people, so I would have been happy with whoever he picked in that group, and I was definitely happy with JD Vance.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, guys. That is it. We're going. Actually, we got 2 more minutes, but whatever. I have stuff to do. I got my axes in.
Aha.
Your axes.
I got a company that's gonna sell axes.
Not the allies, the axes.
They're really cool, decorative. They're not like the axes that you get from Home Depot. They're actually like hand carved and like put together.
I collected a handful of Winchester axes. Nice. Winchester made so many different tools people don't realize, and I have Winchester screwdrivers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But before we get distracted again,
No, I just want to say, like, I teamed up with a guy I know in Pakistan, and like, why are you teaming up with some guy in Pakistan? If you know about the Punjabi region, they're really, really good metal workers, and they do it all by hand and stuff like this, and it's cheaper. It helps him provide for his family, and also it provides a extremely high quality axe for the American buyer.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, and plus it gets the whole village over there works on them. So
It takes a village.
What's up?
Good luck on your venture.
Yeah. They should be arriving today, so they're all like made by hand. Paying for all the stuff, given them, that was a pain in the ass. So we were like, are you sure? Yeah. No, they're like, think of everything like, oh, you're sending money to Pakistan. Yes. Well, it's probably scammed. I was like, no, I know this. I know them. It's like, it's not. Trust me. But yeah, it was kind of hard to convince them. Like, no. Well, the scammers tell you to say that. I'm like, no. I'm like, trust me, I know about scam. I know the method. I was like, it's one of the things I do.
Enough room to grow. Well, guys, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks again, Rick.
I
And
will
we'll see you at the GOA conference.
Indeed. That'll be
Have
fun.
a good evening, guys.
all
Thank
right.
you, man.